Okay, we're back at the drill press again. Now that we got the other blank finished, now we're going to start on our second blank, and we're going to make um, double segments on this one. This is going to be just like the first blank, Bacote and Bloodwood with veneers. I have a stop block back here where my fingers are, and that's for the lower end of the Bacote blank. Now remember, like I said earlier, we just like on the table saw, you want to start from this side down. So how we're going to cut those segments out using this jig is a lot like how we did the medallion. We're going to use the stop block, and I have a line right here. This is going to be my center line between the blank, because if you look at the blank this way, this is wider than it is taller. So, but that's not a problem. That's barely any adjustment on the jig at all. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put that in place, the long end forward. Oh, and I switched out my cutter from the 1 1/8 inch hole saw. This is a 2-inch hole saw, same brand. That's secured all the way up to the stop block. You can see my line here. I'm going to go ahead and tap that in place with a hammer. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate this, and I'm going to get this side right here is going to be just on the opposite end, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to see. I'm going to adjust the camera. And let me zoom in. Okay, now I'm going to use my little straight edge here. That's the straight side, and I want that to be just a little bit shy of being right on that line, and that's probably pretty good right there, if you can see that. That's going to be the center. Go ahead and tighten that down. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. It's going to be, I don't have a dust collection hooked up to it with my camera. Just over a little bit more. There we go. And you can see how that cut is right there. And because it's got a hole here, all that sawdust is going to evacuate out really easy. Pardon my reach. Okay. Tapped it out with the hammer. See, that's nice, perfect cut down the middle. Nice smooth cut. And then that looks really good. See how smooth that is? That makes a big difference on the type of a cutter head you buy. If you buy a cheap one, chances are you're not going to get a really good smooth cut or a nice, perfect cut like that. And that's right on that line, so that's good though. And then we'll glue some veneers in there. So I have a 1/2 inch piece of scrap wood. Now I'm going to use this to make my scallops, because that's about the width of a scallop. And I'm going to take this right up to that line right there, just past that. And then now I want to wedge that in there. But you see there's a bit of a gap right there, so that's not going to allow that to happen. So I'm going to take this 1/2-inch wedge and put that in there. And then with the sliding wedge, lock that in place with my hammer. And see how that looks. That looks pretty good. I'm going to kick that over just a little bit so that the cut will actually go into the scrap of wood, and then it'll give me a full rounded cut of the width there of this Paduk. You see how that looks right there. So I think we're pretty. Another little tap. Okay, release that out. Pop that out. There. You can see that is a nice clean cut of Paduk, and I got a little shaving right there out of that wood, but that's okay because that's just scrap wood. So you see where the angle of that cut is. So I'm just going to, the initial cut was like this, so now I'm going to advance that forward, flip it over, just past that line again. Take my wedge, put it in there, or the scrap, my wedge, tap it in there. Now for the pen I'm going to make, I'm going to need 8 of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut those right now. So that way you'll see how quickly this goes. So that's 2. Again, I'm going to rotate that over, move that forward, lock that slightly in, lock it in place. And you can feel and hear the difference when that clears that cut. Lock that back. There that is. So I'm going to advance this forward again, rotate it and advance it. And you can see how much waste I have. Very little waste. Right there. So again, move it forward, adjust it. Slide that up. Pop that in. Okay, now we're going to get ready to do the segmenting here. So before you do that, make sure you have all your supplies ready on hand. Those are all my veneers here for the segments. Got my wax paper down, my blank, and these are going to be my offcuts for the scallops, my Paduk slices or half rounds, quarter rounds, whatever you want to call them. So just like before, I'll use my clamp. I'm going to use 2 slices of white and 1 black. And again, remember these are cut, the grain going length or up and down, not lengthwise. So that way you're going to get that flexibility inside. Same with the black veneer. And then the white. And then all these are good. So we're just going to go ahead and pop that in the middle. One thing I should mention and re-mention was the hole saw bit was a 2-inch bit, and I'm cutting these slices of veneer. These are 2 inches wide, and that just fits, just barely anything sticking over. So I'm going to do one side first. clamp that in either way. Kind of make it a little snug. Get my glove out of there. Again, dry fit it first. This is what works good for me. You can do it your own way. Again, it looks like you're going to undercut it from the middle, but that's plenty of meat on the inside. As you turn it around, there's enough meat on that wood right there on both sides, so you don't have to worry about not having enough wood. You won't have any gaps there. Put a few drops. This is, again, the thin. Spray it with some accelerator. Okay. And now what we'll do is we're just going to take that right to the disc sander. Not much on there to take off with the bandsaw. Okay, now we'll just cut this side off next, and remember this end goes to the front. Okay, back at the drill press. Again, this is the upper, which is going to be towards the front. The lower is going to be towards the stop block. So I'm going to flip that directly over, not lengthwise, but rotate it. Push that all the way up, and you can see that lines up with that line right there. We'll go ahead and put a stop block in. And we just want to check that fit. We can bring that right down to it, and it's almost right on that line, so we're good. Okay, here we go for the second part. We've got our veneers, the white, black, white. Exact same thing on the opposite side. Slice of Padauk. Get that centered. Bring that C-clamp in here again. Put a little bit of tension on it, just to it's really walking. Okay, that looks good. A little bit of fussing to get that one off. Okay, now we'll just go back to the sander, grind that off again. Okay, back at the jig again at the drill press. So far we've got half of both sides done. Now we're gonna go in the same orientation, but it's gonna be the middle this time. So we're gonna line our mark up on the center line. So that goes all the way up to the front. Again, make sure the lower end goes up to the front. And then we're gonna use the wedge, knock that in place, make it tight. And then we can see where we are. Now you can see we're off on the line right there, so we want to bring it over just a little bit, maybe too much. And you can do a little bit of a test fit, bring it down. If that doesn't work, you can back it back up and try it again. No, that's not good. A little bit more. Now you can really see those segments taking shape there. And you can see how good that looks inside. Well, that's 3/4 of it right there already. Let's glue in the veneers. Same process as before. 2 white veneers, the black one goes in the middle. Slice of Padauk. So we get that on there. Okay, I just remeasured this, and so this is my upper, this is my lower. So again, the lower portion is going to go towards the front. So we have 3 pieces already done, both sides, and the third one. So now again, just like before, that goes all the way up. Go and tap that wedge in. And I should mention, as a grip on the sides, on both sides over here and over here. I use a 6-inch adhesive back sanding disc that I just cut in strips. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier or not. And that's what I have taped on these two outside pieces for grip to those blanks so they don't slide. So again, tap that in place. And we're going to make our final cut. It's a pretty tight grip in there. And you can see that. That is our fourth one. And that looks pretty good, symmetrical all the way around. So we'll put the veneers in there, sand it up, and then we're done with that. Almost. Okay, back at the veneers. Again, white, black, white. Put that in place. And we'll see if we can get that to cooperate with this. We shouldn't have any problem this time because it's a real flat surface. What works good also are little quick grips. Spray it with the accelerator. You have to put a little more, just for good measure. Now this CA glue will load up your sandpaper, so always keep a fresh sheet of that stuff handy. So, okay, one thing I forgot to mention was I put an X on the lower end when I remeasured it. So now all I have to do is mark the center right here using my pen marking jig. I'm going to use, since I'm using a cigar, I'm going to mark this real quick. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to cut this in half in the jig. Again, using my Japanese style tool. Move that out of the way. Let me get okay. All right, so now this is cut in half. Now those are my two segmented ends. Okay, I put a drop of CA glue there, another little drop there. I'm just going to put those together real quick. Make sure my lines are lined up, my veneers. And that's pretty much already set. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put that inside the in the jig, and then we'll start cutting that again. So this is going to be the lower, this is going to be the upper, and you can see I put an X right here so that I know that even if I stand in the face and I lose upper and lower, I know which side is going to be the lower just by the X, by going by the jig. Okay, so lower goes in that way, so we're not going to cut this side first. We have to cut this side first. So we're going to put that in there all the way forward, put the slide in, lock it in place, and go ahead and start our cut. Oh wait, I forgot to measure. Okay, that is going to be on my, that's on my line now. So we'll turn that on. We'll test it. That looks good. Okay, back here we're going to do the exact same thing as before. The veneers. Slice of wood and glue it down. Okay, that last disc was getting loaded, so it was time to change it out. So we got a fresh disc on there. And okay, we'll flip it and do it again. Okay, back at the drill press again. We're getting ready to cut this side right here. Make sure the X is forward. We're going to go ahead and put the lock in with a slide, lock that in place. And you know what's really good about this is this tabletop is 44 inches off the ground. I'm just using a small benchtop drill press. Not very powerful, but it does the job great for this right here. And with my bad back, 44 inches off the ground, this base is taller than on my 17-inch bandsaw. So there is no bending whatsoever. Makes cutting, doing this a dream versus my table saw. Even though my table saw is lifted about 3.5 inches up off the ground on its mobile base, so it's 4 inches up, it makes using the table saw there's no comparison. Anyway, back to work. So we're going to cut this. Again, when you go all the way through that wood, when you go into the substrate here, you can really feel the difference, so you know when to stop. See, look at that. It's a perfect even cut all the way through. Again, save your offcuts. And then look how smooth that is all the way. There's no rough spots. If you can see that, there's no rough spots at all. Okay, veneers and that piece in there again. Same as before. 2 veneers, 2 white, 1 black. Slice of Padauk. Okay, now if you don't have access. Okay, back of the disc grinder again. We'll go ahead and sand that flush. Okay, so at the drill press, time to do the sides now. I put marks on both sides so I know where my center line is going to be. And of course the X, that's going to be towards the front of the jig. So we'll go ahead and tap that in place. Move that out of the way. And let's see where that's going to be. You can see, if you look at that, we're pretty far off. And that's pretty close right there. So, do a test fit. We're right on that line, so that looks good. Oops, my hammer. Okay, now we'll put our veneers. Okay, so same as before. I've got this one glued down. This one has a little bit of a chunk in the wood, but that's okay because that's not going to show when I turn it down. Again, you're going to go through a lot of CA glue this way. I've tried doing it the other way, and I haven't had much success with it either way. The other way sets up too quickly for me. So I like this way. At least I can hold it first. Okay, so that one I get a little bit more CA glue on. So that one's going to take a little bit more sanding to clean up. And then one more cut. Okay, so back at the drill press again. Make sure your X is forward. We've cut everything except this side, so that's the side that's going to go in. Let's get your wedge. One last cut. Looks like it's a little bit over. That one walked out on me, the wedge. Okay, now we'll have to sand that loose right there, or sand it even, because we're touching the veneers on that side, and that side we're not. Okay, so back at the lathe, I've got a little bit larger diameter drum sander, so we'll just sand that one side. That looks good, and then we'll go ahead and put the veneers in. Same as usual, white, black, white. Slice of Purdue. Okay, so this is the last piece here. Now, because these scallops are larger than the other ones, it really detracts from putting a band in the middle or a medallion on the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep this one like this. We'll go ahead and sand that out. All we have to do now is just cut it in half and drill it out. and insert the tubes. Okay, so I have my blank in here and my miter saw jig, and then I'm just going to go ahead and cut that again. And then now we'll just go ahead and drill those out. Looks pretty good on both sides, right on the center, I'd say. Go and do the other one. And there's a little bit of a center mark right there where both those lines intersect, so that's the line I'm going to go for. Open this up a little bit more. And all I'm doing here is inspecting to see if there's any gaps in those jaws, which I don't see any, so I'm going to give it a good twist. And that looks good. I'm going to tighten that down. That's good there. And that's broke out in the center. Now, just because it looks wider here and thinner here, you have to accommodate for the gap that's not there. So when you turn that, all that'll. So just like before, we're going to use some Elmer's wood glue. This is just a regular Glue Max. Has some wood inside it looks like, so it's brown. And that's even on both sides. Again, like I said, I haven't used epoxy in years. The only time I'll use CA glue is if I'm gluing up acrylics. Other than that, I always just use wood glue. Haven't had any issues with it breaking on me or anything like that. So give it a shot. It will save you money. A lot of money. And that's not right. in the center there. Then we'll just use the tool on that to square those ends off. And then let that dry overnight. Okay, here we are at the mini lathe. I'm using the pen mandrel, and we're just going to flush up the ends here. And here we go. Turn that down a little bit. Double check it as I go, and I can feel that one when I hit. Again, remove that, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure I'm lined up properly. Normally when I do this, I do them all at one time. Good. And then with a little bit of a burr on the inside of that, I've got this tapering tool that I picked up from Harbor Freight. They usually come like 3 in a set, and it's supposed to be a titanium or whatever. But anyway, these things work really good just to ream that out. Just give it a little hand turn in there. That cleans up those ends. When I'm going in on the tube, I'm not going in with the tube straight like this. I'm going in on an angle, so this is actually riding the bevel all the way up. So I'm getting a nice flush cut inside there. There, and that looks good.
This is the pen we made on the drill press. It's Bloodwood and Bacardi and Paduke. And then we're going to go ahead and start out with this one. I'll erase this up a little bit.
Down some more CA glue right there and see what that looks like. If there's any gap fillings. And then go back to my thin CA. Again, use a liberal amount. You can see how that color really pops out at you. I've only had a couple pieces break apart on me when I was turning, so I figured it's easier to stop and put a little glue on just to know that I'm going to turn it off, but it's okay because in the end it works out in my favor. I haven't had one come apart on me after I did this. So, okay, we'll go ahead and put that one back on the tool rest. it comes to turning wood, I actually like using regular tool steel one, and this is just a cheapy Craftsman one. It's actually one of my favorite tools. I've actually been using that one for years, but I'm going to use the carbide here just to remove that seal here. Okay, so right here I have 3 layers of veneers, the same white, black, white, and off camera I sliced them and wedged them to fit inside here. So I'm going to put a drop of CA in there. That's a medium. Got my accelerator handy. I'm just going to hold that there. And then I'm going to cut that with a saw. Okay, I've got a little miniature gent saw here, so I'm just going to cut that. The other way, up against the grain. And I think instead of, I'm just going to run a Dremel on that just to sand it down a little bit. And that's the good thing about woodwork, is it's all improvising. So when things like that happen, don't fret over it. Just deal with it, move on, and overcome it, and then find something else. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go back to just turning, roughing it, or getting it down to shape. The other things that I should mention is that the middle collar here for the cigar, I actually turn it down a little bit thinner than what the standard size bushing is. I actually cut away a little bit of the bushing, so that little bump that you have, it actually sets a little bit below that bump, so the middle depends not so. back to the CA finish. Again, 3 coats of thin and then 2 coats of medium. I'm going to turn the speed down on the lathe. Thin, 2 medium next. That's a 400, and we'll get right up straight. Back to 2000. Okay, now we're going to assemble the one we just turned. This is going to be black chrome. So this is the middle collar section. This one I already have pre-assembled. Open that up just a little bit more though. Okay, I'm going to line that up right in the middle. Let's line that right up in the middle of those scallops. Give it a good push. That looks good. And let's move this up a little bit closer. There's that little ding right there. I won't sell this one. I'll just probably give this one away as a gift. Okay. Now both of these ends are pretty much the same because I turned one side down a little bit lower than that middle collar section. And you'll see here, oops, this is for the transmission right here. You'll see what I'm talking about. How I undercut that there's still a nice little rib from the middle part, and it actually gives it a nice look when the whole pin is assembled. transmission on. Okay, that's the end of this first video. We've made 2 different pens. I hope you got a lot of information out of it.